So, Jace, you've been at AVK, is it coming up 4 years?
4 years in December, yeah.
Very
yeah.
good. And how has that sort of massively changed for you in your time here? What have you seen in AVK, you know, some of the key changes over the course of the 4 years?
Huge. Whenever I first came on board, we were doing standby jobs. I suppose that would have been traditionally AVK's bread and butter. We took on the first microgrid, 2022, finished it at the beginning of this year, and it was a humongous step change. So I suppose the few of the biggest items really were the level of design needed up front. You know, if we were to look at the standby stuff, it's tried and tested over a very long time, 10, 15 years.
Absolutely.
It's sort of, okay, just pick and go, pick and go, pick and go, pick and go.
But having said that, the scale of those projects has massively increased too. I mean, when I first started doing data centers, it was 1 or 2 engines, you know, now
it's 50 plus.
50 plus engines. So even the scale of those projects, just in line with the industry, has
absolutely. Oh, they hold their own merit and they stand on their own feet. But I suppose there was that period of time over years where everybody had fine-tuned the design, fine-tuned the install. You know, there's only so many ways you can containerize a generator, there's only so many ways you can put one in, etc., etc. Moving on to the microgrid was just boom.
Yeah.
Right. So what do we do now?
Absolutely.
You know, how do we do this? How do we start this? How do we commission this? How do we design this? How do we procure this?
With great difficulty.
Yeah. So there was many an argument, many a sleepless night trying to get it figured out. But that was the biggest step change that I've seen. You know, apart from the overall growth of the business, the sheer amount of people coming in, new processes. You know, looking at not just engineering, but okay, we'll go from 150 to 350. Now we need HR more. Now we need this more. Now we need finance more. All those wee small changes compounded into big changes. But the biggest one for me overall would absolutely be the step change through into microgrids and seeing the sheer volume of work that's needed up front to get that right.
And, you know, I think, yeah, you're right. The market has changed so dramatically when, you know, we look across the landscape of the energy constraints and problems that we have in Europe, but yet our demand for energy is going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we all own multiple devices, just even obviously at the ground level, but the processing power needed now for AI is wildly changing the game. And whether the industry is caught up to the solution it is a bigger question, but certainly in those areas where energy constrained, like Dublin, where we have obviously seen it probably first, but certainly won't be the only, and that demand is going nowhere. You know, was obviously interesting, you know, for me to hear from, I guess, your perspective is being that first person to sort of drive, you know, microgrid projects here. And I say first person, obviously we have others at AVK who are doing the same. You know, what's that experience been like for you to do something that doesn't have a trodden path?
Personally, great personal achievement for me. And it's lovely to be able to take this sort of same core team from in Ireland to work through the standby onto the microgrid. So there's been a nice progression for everybody across the board. I suppose that changing the mindset was a big one, around we're not just, I'm going to say autopilot, probably a good fit for it. We're not an autopilot where we're doing standby. It's something new, right? We need to completely rip up the script here and go from fresh. And you know, with that comes the challenges across the board. 100%. You know, first into the ring gets the bloody nose, and we absolutely have felt that firsthand. But the real benefit to it is that all the lessons that we're learning now, you know, can be passed on to the next one, and it puts AVK and the team in Ireland, and you know, that'll expand out to the teams wherever. It's just passed on knowledge, you know, and that compounds as the jobs get bigger and they get more. That'll compound. So
it's the technical complexity of these jobs that really staggers me. I look at the engineering prowess that is needed. You know, look, I've done data centers for quite a long time, and you know, look, they're technical buildings. There's a lot that go into them, but like we've said, where there is trodden path, it does make it easier. You can make tweaks to that, you can improve things, you can make things more efficient. Where there is just a gap, where look, people have built power stations, they have built gas plants, but bringing it all together in the combination with the data center has obviously thrown up completely different challenges, and getting the right engineers to be able to look at it, and the knowledge that we've gained from that. Are there any sort of key, I guess maybe technical challenges that you could pull out, say, yeah, that one, like in particular, it's quite been sort of a curly one?
Yeah, I think probably the product offering from AVK on the microgrid centres heavily around the bays. That was a big step change. It will be a big step change for the industry, embedding that into generation. So that was probably a big one. It was, you have all this technology, generation, battery storage, tried and tested on its own merit, but bringing that all together and making it all sing from the same hymn sheet, and ultimately delivering the solution to the customer that they want. When you have varying different scopes, varying different requests, you're trying to tick all the boxes with multiple different bits of equipment and technology. That was a challenge for sure. Very, very, very fortunate that I suppose the first microgrid, the core team around it, were all on the same page from the offset around, okay, we have a rough idea of how this is going to come together and how we're going to do this, and we all acknowledge that we're not going to get it right, and we all acknowledge that we're going to work to make sure it does be right. So that was the key. I suppose you could fall foul to wanting to have all the answers at the very beginning, and then whenever you hit a roadblock, it's hard to overcome that. So the attitude was a big thing from the lads, and it ultimately was the driver of the success for sure.
And that's the thing for me. Nobody wants to be the guinea pig. Like, nobody wants to be the guinea pig, but it takes a bit of bravery, both from a client space as well as AVK putting themselves out there as that system integrator. I think massive kudos as well. In that space too.
That's a real valid point, because it was something that we had massive trust from the customer. They acknowledged the skill set that AVK were bringing to the table, and I'm not going to say they got out of the way, but there was no fluff in the middle of it. There was no, we didn't have any owner's engineer. It was us, direct to client, client's engineering team, client's operations team, and it was the right people talking in the right forum. And it was very, very smooth. So they have a massive part to play in that. Wow. And it is absolutely a model that should be looked at from a customer perspective across the board in the industry. It's, find the right people, trust them to do the job, and work with them. And that's as simple as it needs to be.
And that's it. As inevitability comes with this industry sort of rapidly progressing, the fact that we learn the lessons the hard way on this, we've used an iterative process and engineering know-how to get to the right solution. What also I think is I'm hyper conscious of, the technology will shift and change. Mm-hmm. There will be continued learning, mm-hmm. but those who have trodden the hard path first, even you look around sort of, controls and into the sort of commissioning phase of these works, if you haven't ever done it before, you are absolutely miles behind, where the team is today. In terms of the team that you've got, what would be sort of the biggest advice you'd say, someone who's come in and gone, gosh, we're doing things that really there is no playbook for. Mm-hmm. What would be sort of your sort of top tip for somebody coming in new to that?
I would say keep calm. Don't fret on not having all the detail right from the very, very beginning. And it's funny me saying it, because I probably would have been the worst in the world for it at a time, but it's absolutely something.
Easy to give the advice, hardest to live it.
Live by your own rules.
That's it.
But no, it would be for sure. And if you're coming into this environment with ABK, you're in here for a reason. Trust your own ability, trust that you'll be backed, because you will. The business will absolutely back any decision. It'll back skill set to the very, very end. So, just keep calm. Don't freak out if you don't have the answer straight away, because it's uncharted waters, and as I say, first into the ring gets the bloody nose. Yeah. And it's probably going to be like this for a wee while longer.
It will, but again, in the chaos comes opportunity. We've worked with a number of parties who will profess to be experts in this space, but the truth is no one is the expert, and actually AVK are backing and pushing and funding that way for the staff to become those experienced experts, so that when we do go to the next clients, the next tranche of people who are having the energy problems, want energy solutions, or also just big picture thinking. They're starting to think about their assets differently. They're starting to decide, what might be the greener solution here, and with some of the environmental, constraints that we see. Especially across Europe, these are a great solution to that problem. And so as we see a different type of client, and maybe a more educated client coming to that party, knowing that the engineers and the project delivery people that have come through what we're calling a very tough graduate scheme as part of these first projects, there'll be a bit of comfort in it that actually they don't have to be the first guinea pigs, but they do have to have an attitude.
There absolutely will be, and that's. It's easy to talk, and there are people who come after us that will say, yep, no problem, no problem, no problem. But if it was me, I would be banking my hat on who's been there, done that, got the T-shirt, who's got the scars. So yeah, for sure, that's, and it's a small industry. Eyes will be all over what we're doing at the moment. And when it succeeds, it'll be, okay, the guys got in, got it done, so let's talk to them.
As we know, there is a core drive now for data centers to be greener, cleaner. The media is fairly negative, and the vitriol and the rhetoric around data centers it is problematic. But we also know that despite them being quite energy hungry, they are absolutely imperative. At the moment, we do not have another solution for storage of our data, and power requirements around them are only going up. I guess AVK really see microgrids as an opportunity to look at a different solution, and can be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. Is there anything that you can touch on about around the fuels and around the opportunity to use something different, other than the traditional grid, as we know?
So well, the first microgrid that we completed at the beginning of this year, the prime runner of it was ultimately on gas. The backup generation was on HVO. So, in terms of what's available in the industry right now and being able to put it at scale in that capacity, I think we were probably well ahead of the curve there. We had the battery storage there, so that even reduces the runtime of the generation to begin with. So, yeah, it's it is going to be a challenge. Ultimately, generation is going to be required in some capacity, regardless of what the technology will be.
Totally. When the sun's not shining, when the wind's not blowing, you're going to need something to back up that power, and you do need steady power for data centers. So, 100%. Thanks for our chat today. Love hearing about it, and I love hearing about your career progression. I just think it's not only genuinely sort of inspirational that you've taken on these challenges with great attitude, but I love that for AVK as well, that we've got people like you in the business that are able to deliver projects of this complexity and quality and kind of do it with that great attitude, and we're fortunate to have you.